Peter Sutcliffe, a serial killer who terrorized the UK between 1975 and 1980. He murdered 13 women and attempted to kill 7 others, primarily in West Yorkshire and Greater Manchester. Sutcliffe targeted sex workers and other vulnerable women, often attacking them with hammers and screwdrivers. His crimes caused widespread fear until his arrest in 1981. But did he work alone? It's been theorized that Sutcliffe, now dubbed the Yorkshire Ripper, had an accomplice, perhaps even taking orders from somebody he looked up to and respected. Somebody who could manipulate his simple mind. Somebody as sick and twisted as Sutcliffe himself. Somebody you know very well. We're going to explore some strange coincidences between Peter Sutcliffe and a well-known celebrity. Did this celebrity admit to being the Yorkshire Ripper? Watch till the end and you may wonder. Sutcliffe was arrested in 1981 after being caught with false license plates on his car. He was with a sex worker at the time and had tried to discard a hammer and a screwdriver behind a drain pipe during a routine police check. That routine check would finally link him to the murders. Sutcliffe was sentenced to life in prison, later receiving a whole life tariff, meaning he would never be released. In 2020, Sutcliffe died in prison at the age of 74 after contracting COVID-19.
Good morning, it's Friday the 13th of November. Our top story this morning, one of the country's most notorious serial killers, Peter Sutcliffe, known as the Yorkshire Ripper, has died.
Serial killers Peter Sutcliffe has died aged 74.
The serial killer Peter Sutcliffe, known as the Yorkshire Ripper, has died.
Lorry driver Peter Sutcliffe was one of the most notorious serial killers in criminal history.
His crimes remain among the most infamous in British history. But one question refuses to go away. Did Peter Sutcliffe kill 13 women and injure 7 others by himself? Meet James Wilson Vincent Saville, or as you know him, Jimmy Savile. Savile was a British television and radio personality, best known for hosting Jim'll Fix It and Top of the Pops.
A fella could get used to all this, as it happens, he really could get used to it. So ladies and gentlemen, all we can say is good night from all of us here at Top of the Pops.
After his death in 2011, he was exposed as a prolific sexual predator, with hundreds of allegations of abuse spanning decades.
The big question I get asked is when did it all start and why?
Investigations revealed that he used his celebrity status to gain access to vulnerable individuals, including children and hospital patients. The scandal led to widespread criticism of institutions that enabled his crimes, including the BBC, hospitals, and law enforcement. Savile manipulated people through a combination of charm, deception, and strategic use of his celebrity status. He was given unrestricted access to several prisons and hospitals in the UK. He was an unofficial visitor at institutions like Broadmoor, Stoke Mandeville, and Leeds General Infirmary, often claiming to be there for charity or rehabilitation work. His celebrity status and connections allowed him to move freely without supervision, and he was even given his own keys to Broadmoor High-Security Psychiatric Hospital, where he abused vulnerable patients. His influence over these institutions enabled him to commit crimes without suspicion for decades. But what does this have to do with the Yorkshire Ripper? On February 5th, 1977, Irene Richardson's body was found on a field in Roundhay Park, Leeds. She had become the Ripper's third killing. She had been attacked with a hammer before being stabbed multiple times. Her boots had been placed neatly on her body, almost like some kind of ritual. This was the second time an attack had taken place in this very spot. Just 9 months earlier, 20-year-old Marcella Claxton was also attacked, but survived. She gave a description to police, but they did not believe it was a Ripper attack because she wasn't a prostitute and hadn't been attacked with a knife. Oh, and by the way, Jimmy Savile lived right here in the penthouse. There is little doubt that if Saville had known in advance, and if he'd wanted to, he could have witnessed both attacks from his apartment. Could he have killed? Saville offered himself as an intermediate between the killer and the police if needed. Regular meetings with the police took place at his apartment. Here, he could be kept up to date about police activity and gather information about the attacks. Could Saville really manipulate the police into giving him information? The Ripper had continued his attacks on women in the north of England at an average of almost one every other month. And on May 16, 1978, the Ripper claimed the life of a ninth victim. Vera Millward was a 40-year-old woman from Manchester. She had been hit over the head and stabbed several times before her body being dumped in the grounds of Manchester Royal Infirmary. Saville had well-documented access to the infirmary, where he was known to visit as part of his charity work. Was he there on May 16th? Perhaps just another coincidence. Saville was questioned at least 6 times by police over the killings. At one stage, he was even considered a person of interest, after it became apparent that he had connections to West Yorkshire and Manchester, where several victims were found. One notable photo fit created from the testimony of one survivor showed a man with long, wavy, light-colored hair, a prominent chin, and distinctive facial features, which some people thought resembled Jimmy Saville. Police requested blood samples and a mold of Saville's teeth be made due to some of the victims being bitten during their attack. Despite being questioned multiple times, he was never treated as a serious suspect, and the police did not pursue him further. But it might be worth noting that Sutcliffe was also questioned 9 times, and he was never initially identified as the killer. Sutcliffe was able to evade suspicion by giving convincing explanations, and his answers were not flagged as suspicious. Another coincidence? Almost a year had passed before the Ripper would strike again, this time in Halifax for the first time, in April 1979. He killed 19-year-old Building Society clerk Josephine Whitaker. This would be the second attack on a woman who was not a known sex worker. Her body was found with wounds to the head from a hammer and multiple stab wounds to her chest, stomach, and vagina. She was found at Saville Park Moor. Was the killer leaving clues? Was this somebody sticking their head above the parapet? Or are we joining up the dots where they don't exist? During Saville's lifetime, he was interviewed many times and appeared in many shows and documentaries. When asked about women, he always referred to them as brain-damaged.
Do you have brain damage?
Because the girls I know specialise in brain damage.
And yet all of the Ripper's victims were hit over the head. Perhaps we're just clutching at straws. In one interview with Louis Theroux, Saville admitted that he washes his mother's clothes once a year and leaves them folded neatly in the wardrobe. Almost like a ritual.
Yeah, look, there we are. And my cleaner takes them out and gets them cleaned and freshened up about once a year. Now all this gear was gear she wore, so instead of slinging it away, I thought I'd hang on to it because these make better souvenirs than photographs. These are much nicer than photographs. So, they're all the gear there.
Can we take some of them out?
Well, not really. Well, what do you want to take them out for? Do you want to wear them?
Remember Irene Richardson? After attacking her, the Ripper positioned her body in a way that was distinct from his other victims. Her boots were placed neatly on her body like some kind of ritual, and this unusual detail raised suspicions. This act, along with some others, suggested that the killer was increasingly becoming more methodical in his approach to the murders. Coincidence? In 1978 to 79, a man claiming to be the Yorkshire Ripper wrote to the police. In the letters, he gave detailed information about the killings. In 1978, he sent a tape. He described details about the murders that were not publicly known at the time. How could this be? The Wareside Jack hoax played a significant role in delaying the investigation, as the police focused on the wrong suspect for a time, based on the details in the tape and letters. In 2005, John Humble, a man from Sunderland, admitted to being Wareside Jack after DNA evidence linked him to the hoaxes. However, Some people theorize that the tape recording was that of Savile impersonating a Mackem. That's the term used for somebody from Sunderland. The cassette used was a cassette for recording singles. These weren't available to buy at this time. But a radio DJ should be able to get one with ease.
I never questioned why I did things. I only went from my heart.
The Sunshine Fund for Blind Babies was one of the many charities Jimmy Savile was associated with during his lifetime. During a charity fundraising open day, Jimmy Savile admitted to being the Yorkshire Ripper. Was this a sick joke? Or was a serial killer toying with us? Watch this clip and let me know your thoughts in the comments.
First thing, before I even move a muscle or a hair of the head, I demand to be paid. Because, as her lovely ladyship said, I do all this and all that, which is not true, really, it's my brother. And my fee for coming here today was an embrace for her ladyship, and I have not yet been paid. So I demand to be paid instantly, otherwise I'm afraid I cannot carry on. Wait, I put a special aftershave on as well. You see, because it's not very often that people like me get a chance to even get near a real ladyship, and so, seeing as we're that near, I think a little embrace should be called for, don't you, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you. Can you talk amongst yourselves, please? And under no circumstances, look. Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam. What the drawings are. The drawings, ladies and gentlemen, have been done by a local lady, and it's a photo fit of the Yorkshire Ripper. It's a photo fit of the Yorkshire Ripper. The Yorkshire Ripper. The Yorkshire Ripper. Let me tell you, you really are missing something. In fact, you're missing everything.